This week, the Republican candidate for Chautauqua County District Attorney released more about his campaign platform and what he is dubbing his Victims First agenda. Joining us on the show is attorney Jason Schmidt. Sir, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
First off, how difficult is it, in your experience, to get victims to, first of all, come forward out of their fears of reliving these experiences?
Well, I think that victims are always in fear of being re-victimized, and especially in the beginning of a case when the perpetrator who has committed the crime is still out there in the streets. I think there's a twofold approach. First of all, you have to have confidence in the community that you've got police and prosecutors that are aggressive and that are willing to make the arrest and be successful at trial and getting convictions. That sets a precedent so that victims are aware going forward that they're going to be able to hold these people accountable. Without that, you're not going to have victims who are confident coming forward. But you also need to be able to handhold with these victims. And that's something that I used to do quite a bit when I was at the district attorney's office. It was so important to me to work with victims right from the front end of the case. I would meet with them and tell them about the process and assure them that we're here for them every step of the way. And that's something that's been just near and dear to me from the moment I set foot in as a prosecutor at the DA's office here in Chautauqua County 15 years ago.
Now, I know you mentioned that your work with the DA's office, you've worked one-on-one with many in the community. Specifically, what type of tactics would you do to help victims who are maybe hesitant to cooperate because they either, as you mentioned, fear retaliation or just in general, I imagine it's hard to relive some of these experiences.
Yeah, this is it's an awful situation. Look, I, I've been a practicing attorney for 20 years. Been dealing with criminal issues for the last 15 years. Been in the courtroom, but before that, I was the victim of violent crime myself. It's just part of my history, and it's something that's ingrained in who I am. And I make sure that people understand that I empathize with their situation. I mean, you're dealing with people that are scared, that they suffered some kind of horrific traumatic event, and they're scared, and they're not just scared about what happened and the ramifications of what would happen if they go forward against the person that caused harm to them, but they're also scared of the unknown. So it's so important as a prosecutor, as somebody who's dealing with them, to make them aware of what the process is about, to give them the assurances that they need, that they're going to be protected during the process, that we're here to walk them every step of the way until we see this process through. It's a long process. Unfortunately, that's the way our system works. It doesn't resolve itself overnight most times. Sometimes these things can go on for over a year, and it's so important to make sure that they know that we're here for them every step of the way. And that's the number one goal that I have. One of my most important platform issues is to let victims know that I myself will personally try each and every violent and serious crime here in Chautauqua County. It's so important that victims are aware that the top prosecutor in the county is going to take their case on, meet with them personally. That's number one, and then take those cases to trial and be there trying those cases, not passing them off to some underling assistant district attorney who, in many cases, unfortunately, is not experienced or qualified enough to take on those cases at trial.
Now, you're an attorney now. I imagine you've been in Chautauqua County Court. Uh, for the public and their perspective, it seems like in any sort of district attorney's office prosecuting on behalf of the people, that the district attorney themselves would prosecute these cases. Is that not happening here in Chautauqua County?
No, it's not. Not with respect to the most serious violent crimes, not really with respect to many of the cases. Now, look, we've got a district attorney's office that has approximately 12 attorneys in that office, and each person has a caseload in and of themselves. And there's no doubt that the district attorney has an administrative responsibility in order to oversee and run the office. But we've got a prosecutor in that office now who fancies himself as an administrator, who has changed the the duties and responsibilities of the district attorney from that of the top prosecutor, the trial attorney who takes these cases to trial, to sitting in the office and delegating. That's not who I am. I'm the guy who steps into the courtroom. I'm the guy that takes those cases to trial. I'm the guy that wants to answer, to the police, to the community, to the victims. Whether we win or lose, I myself would be held accountable. That's what's missing right now. That's what's needed right now. That's what Chautauqua County needs.
Now, a lot has changed here in New York State in regards to criminal reforms. Specifically, discovery reforms have played a big role in the court process. For you, and seeing the changes that have been made, what has changed in regards to dealing with victims now? It seems like there is a lot more on the side of the defense where they maybe have a little bit longer to look over the case and have more opportunities. I know one thing that was a worry was that victims can get re-interviewed by police, but now even in some cases can get re-interviewed by the defense as well. What role does discovery play in that process?
Well, there was a time when, in felony cases, the defense did not have a right to discovery until after the case was indicted, and therefore there was a lot of mystery as to what the evidence was against a defendant. And it was difficult for the defense bar to then negotiate in good faith plea deals or to assess any offers that were made by the district attorney's office. But now the laws have changed, and now the district attorney's office is responsible for providing disclosures upfront in the beginning of the case. It's a change that lawmakers have made. That's not the district attorney's role to opine in it. It's the district attorney's role to step in and be flexible. Laws are always changing. We have to deal with those situations. With respect to the concern that victims that the police may have as to the safety of victims, well, listen, there are mechanisms available to the district attorney's office, including orders of protection that can protect the confidentiality of victims and then can protect them from certain information. The point here that I think that the voters need to understand is that with these new challenges requires somebody who has the experience that can take these on and can adapt to the changes in the law, because you know what? The law is always going to change. What's important is to have somebody who understands how to conduct a trial, how to handle disclosure issues. This district attorney has had many discovery issues that have resulted in mistrials, even dismissals of cases. That's unacceptable. Those are rookie mistakes that we can't repeat any longer. That's why I'm running for district attorney.
Yeah, and a lot of people are very concerned with the legislation that is passed, which, here in Chautauqua County, a lot of officials like DAs and sheriffs really can't do anything different than what the law says. I know specifically we've seen some high profile cases, and we've seen people like Senator Borrello speak out against it, but there would be people who normally would be remanded to county jail on bail for whether it would be assaulting someone or what have you, and now they're out almost immediately. The police don't really have any of that discretion, or the judges don't have that discretion anymore.
Well, that's correct. Listen, we have good representatives in office. State Senator Borrello, Assemblyman Andrew Goodell. We have Tom Reed. Those people, we can entrust them to enact the legislation that's needed. Do I personally agree with them? The truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter what the district attorney's office feels. It's up to the district attorney to adapt to those changes to get the job done. The concern that I have on behalf of the community, the concern that a lot of the police have, is that the district attorney's office is not adapted to any of the changes. The district attorney's office is not capable to handle what's occurring now. And as a result, over the last 4+ or 5 years, it's done a very poor, dissatisfactory job and hasn't serviced this community very well. So yes, there are bail reform laws. I might have an opinion that those laws don't service the community, but then again, I don't think that that's my place to worry about that. It would be my place as district attorney to work within the framework of the law and get the job done.
So specifically, do you have any plans to try to to implement that flexibility that you're talking about? Does it really just come down through the boots on the ground presence there in the DA's office and in the courtroom?
What it comes down to is prioritizing courtroom activities, conviction rates, getting the best possible dispositions, working hand in hand with law enforcement, and accentuating the force multiplier effect that you get when you work in partnership with the police. Some of the historical, stuff that's occurred over the last 4 years is just unacceptable here. It's not acceptable to the police. I would urge the viewers to talk to the police in their community. Find out if it's acceptable. Find out if they're comfortable with what's happening, how well the district attorney's office has done here. We've got some good young prosecutors that need proper leadership in that office. This isn't on-the-job training. Frankly, Mr. Swanson has had 5 years of on-the-job training and nothing has changed. So when you ask me whether it's a matter of boots on the ground, I think you're referring to whether there could be additional funding for the district attorney's office. The truth of the matter is that the legislature has increased the district attorney's office's budget each and every year. Mr. Swanson has not made the most of that budget. He's certainly not producing wins. In the private sector where I'm from, that's unacceptable. If we had somebody who worked for us and wasn't doing the job that they were charged with doing, what would we do? We would unfortunately have to let that person go and change the position so that we can put somebody else in that person's position who gets the job done. That's really the decision that the voters have to make on November 3rd, and that's why I'm running for district attorney, because I know that I can do a much better job than what's been done before. I know the community hasn't been serviced very well with the current administration. It's time for a change. It's time to restore confidence to the community.
All right, Attorney Jason Schmidt, the Republican candidate for Chautauqua County District Attorney, joining us today. Sir, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.